Nin hao chu shi ho remren ho runway. I repeat that. Nin hao chu shi ho remren ho runway. Yes, Comrade Speaker and members of this House, I've been taking lessons in what may soon be Guyana's native tongue. Comrade Speaker, to translate, Comrade Speaker, it simply means...
Let me just remind you that the language of this assembly is always going to be English.
Very well. Very well, sir. The translation for that, Comrade Speaker, simply means, Comrade Speaker, members of this House, I rise to make my contribution to this 2013 budget presented under the theme, Overcoming Challenges Together, Accelerating Gains for Guyana. Comrade Speaker, it is evident that there is a stark contradiction in what is suggested by the theme of the 2013 budget and the actions, once again, perpetuated by the PPDC government. The mere notion of overcoming challenges together indicates a need for consultation and collective bargaining. It was expected that the engagement, which involved both government and opposition, at which challenges would be discussed and amicable solutions found to those challenges. Certainly, this has not been there has not been a real meeting of the minds. Comrade Speaker, this budget, this 2013 budget, like the budget of 2012, had no input from the opposition. The majority, despite the calls made by the leader of the opposition, the Honorable David Granger, to His Excellency President Ramotar on December 12, 2011. Then again on April 13, 2012, during the budget debate, the Honorable Member, Mrs. Valda Lawrence, made another plea. And even before the presentation of this budget, those calls have been reiterated. 3 times now. There's a saying, Comrade Speaker, once is an incident, twice is a coincidence, but 3 times is downright disrespectful. Contemptuous, Comrade Speaker, to the Constitution of Guyana, which clearly articulates in Article 13, citizens and their organizations should be afforded opportunities to participate meaningfully in the decision-making processes of the state. Was this done? Contemptuous. Comrade Speaker, the people of this country spoke loudly through the ballot at the last general and regional elections. Comrade Speaker, had this government moved from their contemptuous ways, we would have seen a 2013 budget by the people, for the people, and for all of the people of Guyana. Comrade Speaker, the Honorable Minister of Natural Resources, Robert Prasad, gave his account of former Presidents Forbes Burnham and Jagan's move to establish a government of national unity. Comrade Speaker, one wonders, was Minister Prasad present at the cabinet meeting after the results of the 2011 elections were declared? Because, Comrade Speaker, those results provided this country and the People's Progressive Party Civic with the greatest opportunity of bringing about a government of national unity. Instead of that, what did we get? I will be putting together a PPP government. So said now President Donald Ramotar. And we've seen just that. Throughout 2012 and even now in 2013, inclusivity is just a dream. Or maybe a nightmare, but you decide. So much for the budget theme, overcoming challenges together, accelerating gains for Guyana. I take this opportunity to indicate that after thorough scrutiny of the rhetoric by the PPDC government, I cannot support this budget in its entirety. I believe to do this, it will be a betrayal of the Guyanese populace who have entrusted me and every other legislator in this House with the inescapable responsibility of nation building and the assurance of a good life, not only for them, but for their children and their children's children. Comrade Speaker, I turn my attention to Region 2. Comrade Speaker, Region 2, as many may know, is dear to me, not only because it is the geographic constituency I represent, but also because I spent several years there as a child, and I take every opportunity to revisit my roots. Region 2, Comrade Speaker, is not without its share of challenges. There is great need for improvement in all sectors if those challenges are to be overcome. The problem of unemployment and underemployment, especially amongst youths, poor health facilities, poor city fence, schools with inadequate facilities and teaching and learning materials, problems in the agriculture sector, to name a few, are part of the plight of the residents of the Pamarun-Supanan region. Comrade Speaker, on August 23rd, 2012, the Essequibo Coast was in a state of unease as inmates of the New Opportunity Corps broke out of the facility. To quote Kaicher News of August 24, 2012, unrest turned nasty at NOC. Panic continues to grip the Essequibo Coast as inmates of the New Opportunity Corps at Condamine intensify their rampage, setting fires to dormitory and other buildings in the compound last night. This was after dozens broke out from the facility on Wednesday. End of quote. Comrade Speaker, in his budget speech, the Honourable Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture, Dr. Frank Anthony, under whom this facility falls, stated, and I quote, "We continue to work with the children at NOC to give the skills that will make a better life." End of quote. One line. Comrade Speaker, the Honourable Minister somehow conveniently neglected to provide this House with any plausible information as to the state of affairs at the NOC. In the said newspaper interview, the Honourable Minister is also quoted as saying, "A commission of inquiry will be set up to examine the circumstances that led to the breakout and to make recommendations." End of quote. But even as we await the report of this inquiry, it is our hope that these questions will be answered. 1. Why were armed ranks deployed at the Condamine location? 2. Was it necessary for live rounds to be used? 3. Did the police act in accordance with their standard operation procedures? Comrade Speaker, in February 6, 2013, publication of the Kaicher News, an article was carried under the caption NOC Commission of Inquiry. Final report is to be presented this month end. End of quote. The article also quoted Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport, Dr. Frank Anthony, as stated his assurance that any staffer found guilty of abusing the children when the report is presented this month end will be dealt with accordingly. Comrade Speaker, this was February 6th. It is now Monday, April 8th, and we await the report. Perhaps, Comrade Speaker, the Honourable Minister, the Honourable Member, is wide awake in a dream, while the inmates of the NOC are still living a nightmare. Correct me if I'm wrong, Comrade Speaker, but isn't the NOC a correctional institution? What is the purpose of the NOC? If not to provide opportunities for rehabilitation of those inmates, then what? Comrade Speaker, there are countless reports of former inmates of the NOC of abuse that they've endured during their time at the institution. What's even more alarming, Comrade Speaker, is the fact that the caregivers at the institutions are the persons engaged in those abusive practices. To detract a bit from Region 2 and to come closer to home for a bit, We see similar practice of inmates at several correctional and care providing institutions. Places like the Palms Geriatric Home, the Sophia Training Center, and the Drop-In Center, just to name a few. Being abused by those individuals who have been entrusted with the responsibility of ensuring that they are cared for and their rights upheld and they are well taken care of. How much more must they endure? It is my humble recommendation, Comrade Speaker, that the relevant authorities take immediate action to correct those ills at the NOC and all other caregiving and rehabilitative institutions, so as to ensure that the rights of all Guyanese, whether young or old or differently able, are upheld. Back to Region 2, on the health. Comrade Speaker, during the presentations, I pleaded with the Honorable Minister of Health, Dr. Ramsaran, Minister within the Ministry of Health, Mr. Hamilton, and the two regional MPs, members Bash and Damon. Tell us something about the Soddy Hospital, and all to no avail. Comrade Speaker, on a recent visit, one resident of that region said, and I quote, "This is what they call a modern state-of-the-art hospital. Boss man, this place is the Pearly Gates Terminal. You either go in to meet your maker or you're going to be referred to Georgetown." End of quote. According to, and Comrade Speaker, throughout the length and breadth of the region, I've encountered dozens of residents that share similar views. They talk about receiving what we refer to as GPT or GPL, general purpose tablets or general purpose liquid, chlorophane. The poor, deplorable condition at the Soddy Hospital has further been compounded on April 1, 2013, to Guyana's latest maternal death. Comrade Speaker, I am certain that the family of Sharon Edwards, 42, of the Amerindian Reservation at Kupui, stood in wait, hoping to be told that it was all an April Fool's hoax. But sadly, this wasn't to be. She met her untimely demise after being checked in at the Soddy Hospital for what was to be a relative simple procedure, a C-section. According to Edwards' family, Comrade Speaker, the members are saying that indeed, perhaps so, Comrade Speaker, that it may not be a simple procedure. But when you have a government that tells you that next to sliced bread, the healthcare system in this country is the best thing ever, you have to consider C-section now in Guyana a simple exercise. Comrade Speaker, according to Edwards' family, publication in the Stabroek News of April 3rd, 2013, the staff of the Soddy Hospital should take some responsibility for her death. The newspaper also quoted Chief Medical Officer Dr. Shandio Prasad as saying, and I quote, that the findings on some of the maternal deaths indicate that there was laxity on the part of doctors as patients were not managed according to protocol. This interview, of course, was done last year. The United Nations resident representative in Guyana, Ms. Musa, at the launch of the State of the World 2013 report told Stabroek News, and I quote, that maternal mortality is one of the Millennium Development Goals that seems difficult for this country to achieve by the 2015 deadline. End of quote. The Soddy Hospital in Essequibo is considered the Pearly Gates Terminal. Is this the dream that the honorable members are talking about, Comrade Speaker? This is a nightmare. agriculture. Comrade Speaker, there is a small riverine community along the Essequibo River called Alaki. There are some small farmers who want to expand their operations, but they are encountering problems and they are calling on the Agriculture Minister to address them. Comrade Speaker, according to the March edition of New Nation, according to the March edition of the New Nation, Comrade Speaker, of which carried an article on the community, and I quote, 25 years old farmer Marvin Russell is cultivating several acres of bananas. He was preparing to cultivate more, but his work is being hampered by, and amongst other things, poor irrigation and not having his own land. He told New Nation that because the main Alaki irrigation canal was blocked during a failed construction of a coker, he was forced to transport his bananas by land, a system which damaged the fruit, forcing him to sell at a reduced rate. Comrade Speaker, it is efforts like these, like young Marvin Russell, that should be applauded and encouraged. And I hereby call upon the Minister of Agriculture to move with dispatch to bring some relief to the residents of Alaki on the Essequibo Coast. Comrade Speaker, I turn my attention to youth. In his budget presentation, the Honourable Minister of Finance stated, and I quote, during 2013, over 1,700 people benefited from training under several programs. In 2013, over 2,500 young people will benefit from similar training programs, equipping them with skills that are needed to enter the world of work and to embark on entrepreneurial ventures of their own. An amount of 65.2 million has been allocated to equip, rehabilitate our training programs. In addition, a sum of 200 million has been allocated for a youth entrepreneurship and apprenticeship program targeting hinterland youths. Again, Comrade Speaker, in 2013, we see the allocation of resources for training of youths at various centers throughout the country. Commendable this is. The lingering question remains, what happens after these trainings have been completed? We are never told how many of those persons who were graduated from those programs now enjoy gainful employment. We were never told. For this reason, Comrade Speaker, this government should hang their head in shame. Because, Comrade Speaker, this government would have produced the largest number of certified unemployed people in comparison with their Caribbean counterparts. A further 300 million for development and upgrading of sporting facilities and infrastructure countrywide. While we note the allocation of funds to the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture, we are hesitant to approve these monies to the said ministry that is still to date unable to craft and present a national youth policy. What is the national youth policy, Comrade Speaker? A national youth policy is not only in itself a document, but a guide that sets out clearly and articulates the developmental initiative for youth of the country over a given period. When questioned about the said document in the 9th Parliament by Honourable Member Africo Selman about its existence, the Honourable Minister, Dr. Frank Anthony, responded, and I quote, "We do not have one." End of quote. Comrade Speaker, why should there be allocations by this House to a ministry that clearly does not have a plan? It would be, to quote Mr. Carl Greenidge, the Honourable Member, it would be throwing money in a black hole. End of quote. For this reason, I hold the belief that the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport output should be described as visionless, lackluster, and even laughable. However, Comrade Speaker, we're told by the Honourable Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture that discussions have been concluded with Ms. Ellis of the Commonwealth Youth Programme, and her department has agreed to fund a consultant to update the national youth policy. Now, after more than a decade of no national policy and billions of taxpayers' dollars being expended, after a decade, we're now going to update what doesn't exist. On the sports, in the area of sports, Comrade Speaker, the same debacle that plagued youth for more than a decade exists. That is the absence of a clear vision and structure for the national development. Thus, we see over the years such projects as, and I brought these to the House last year, Comrade Speaker, the Market Basketball Tarmacs. And to date, Comrade Speaker, not one single basketball hoop has been erected at any of these facilities. But yet still, Comrade Speaker, during that Parliament, this House allocated over $100 million. The Market Tarmac Basketball Initiative, upgrading of community grounds, unseen and unheard of. But Comrade Speaker, the Honourable Member Need Kumar last year in his budget presentation assured me that he has a long list that he can make available to the Honourable Member. Comrade Speaker, to date I have not seen such a list. But yet we see in the 2013 budget there's a request for over $100 million for the upgrading of grounds. Unfulfilled promises. Unfulfilled promises. One such promise came from no other than former President Dr. the Honorable Champion of the Earth, Barrett Jagdeo, to members of the Golden Jaguars, Guyana's national football team. He stated to them, and I quote, "If you are successful at making the cuts, I will ensure that house lots and other perks are available to you." To no avail, the Golden Jaguars are still waiting, Comrade Speaker. Yeah. The Honourable Member say gaff, I say fluff. Comrade Speaker, early in the year, I raised a question in this House about Guyana's national sports policy, after which I received this document, albeit at the cricket committee level. At the cricket committee level. No, you see, Comrade, there's no need to go further, you know. Comrade Speaker, of which I subsequently received, albeit at the committee, at the cricket administration committee level. And I have the document here. Comrade Speaker, we see on the front page, it says here quite clearly, a proposal. And this document was drafted, sir, in the year 2010. And when we turn the first page, Comrade Speaker, it says here, and I quote, "This document represents the recommendations made by a consultant to the Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport on actions required to modernize sports and physical activities over the next 5 years." Comrade Speaker, this document expires March 2014, and it has not seen the light of day. Why should we allocate monies to this ministry? Why should we allocate monies to this ministry? Fluff, Comrade Speaker. Comrade Speaker, in 2016, as all of us in this House are aware, the Olympics comes to the South American continent. I was hopeful, and I was hoping, I was praying, that when the Honourable Minister of Culture, Youth and Sports made his budget presentation, he would have been outlining to us in this House quite clearly Guyana's plans to ensure that we have persons participating in those Olympics, Comrade Speaker. Comrade Speaker, not a single word about the Olympics. And this, Comrade Speaker, as I mentioned earlier, shows us clearly that the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport does not have a plan for youth in this country. Comrade Speaker, it is my humble suggestion that in speaking we refrain from referring to youths are the future, lest we continue to think that only at a time hereafter and ignore the present needs and concern of our youths. Instead, let us in our speeches and actions say that youth matters and we must prepare them now to assume a leadership role in the not so distant future. In 2013 thus far, the single most outstanding individual in Guyana in the area of youth development, in my view, Comrade Speaker, is no other than the leader of the majority, the Honorable David Greenwood. Comrade Speaker, since the genesis of this year, he has dedicated his effort and the effort of the parliamentary majority to the development of Guyana's youth. The Honourable Member has declared that 2013 be the year for youth, Comrade Speaker, the year for Guyana's youth. Focusing on areas of education, employment and empowerment, has made attempts for the Guyana's PPPC-led government to do same. The PPPC government, Comrade Speaker, blatantly disregard to accept this offer. It shows us clearly, Comrade Speaker, where their priorities lie.
Education.
What is the dream? What is the Guyana dream? I believe the fact to be truth, that a picture tells 1,000 words. Comrade Speaker, I now hold in my hands the budget presentation of the Honourable Minister of Finance. Got that. Let's examine it, Comrade Speaker. There's an elderly man holding grains of rice in his hands. Like many Guyanese mothers, fathers, teachers, farmers, public servants, this picture seems to suggest, Comrade Speaker, the question, is this all? Comrade Speaker, let's go to the left of that picture. Another gentleman holding sugar. He seems to be saying, after this government spent over $200 million on the Skeldon Sugar Factory, this is all that it produced, Comrade Speaker. A handful of sugar. A handful of sugar, Comrade Speaker. Let's go above that picture, Comrade Speaker. Look at your picture, Comrade. Let's go above.
All the members you have. 1 second.
Okay, let's go above to that picture, Comrade Speaker. We see a young lady representing thousands of Guyanese who almost on a daily basis, she represents the average Guyanese unemployed public servants. Just a thing. Comrade Speaker, she's having her blood pressure checked. And indeed, Comrade Speaker, it should be noted that the fact that the Honourable Minister of Finance placed this picture on the front page of the budget, he has clearly indicated that the 2013 budget is a pressure budget of the Guyanese people. In conclusion, Comrade Speaker, since we are talking about youth and sport, Comrade Speaker, let us look at this 2013 budget presentation as a game of cricket. Let's look at this as cricket being played in the jungle. And Comrade Speaker, you are the umpire. Comrade Speaker, I call upon you to inform the Honourable Minister of Finance that the 2013 budget is a no ball. And in fact, Comrade Speaker, I call upon you to ask the Honourable members of this House to hold some strain. Inform the Minister of Finance that the budget is a no ball and he will have to bat again. Thank you, Comrade.
Thank you, Honourable Member.